clients who needed the plan the most were sometimes in the least favorable position to be able to afford the plan.
I can see the whole wide world with these two eyes, and I can be whoever I wanna be, 'cause it's my life.
Hi, thanks for joining us for another episode of Ask Spurrell CPA. Today we're talking about, in terms of Edmonton accounting firms, why business plans don't cost extra here at Spurrell Associates. So why business plans don't cost extra, Edmonton accounting firm, Spurrell Associates. The quote that we have here is a Benjamin Franklin quote, going way back, and it says, "If you fail to plan, you are planning to fail." If you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. And the statistic, that we're committed to helping is 50% of all Canadian small businesses are out of business in 5 years. And some of the ones that are still in business aren't making the type of profits that they should be for the efforts they're putting in. And the story that we get here, business owners, they know that a plan is a good idea. Conceptually, they know that a plan is a good idea. But they don't get help on it because they don't know what this thing is going to cost and if they can afford it. That's a problem. So, Trevor, what are the questions that you think these business owners that they should be asking?
Well, I think the first question will be, when will businesses generally benefit from having a business plan?
Yeah, there's a couple of circumstances where businesses will benefit from having a business plan. Let's start with the one who's not going to benefit.
Sure.
If you're a status quo company and all you want to do is eke out, 3% more than last year. You're going to do exactly what you did last year, just raise your prices incrementally or a couple more hours or something like that. If you're just looking for a real incremental improvement, things are clicking along, looking for incremental improvement, you're probably actually not going to get the most value from a business plan. It'll be a document that you'll do and you'll slap in the drawer and you'll do exactly what you did last year. So that's not the one. The ones that are really going to benefit from a business plan is, they're struggling in their business. They're having some challenges in their business. They don't know how to alleviate it.
Right.
Businesses that need financing. The bank is a lot more agreeable to giving you financing if you have a plan in place. They want to know how this money is going to be deployed. And at some level, they're just going to say, we're not going to give you any financing if you don't have a plan. So it's going to be mandatory, not optional. And the other one is businesses that are making major changes. When I say major changes, if you want to grow substantially, that's a major change. If you're not talking 3%, if we're talking 10%, 20%, 50% growth, that's going to be done with a plan. That doesn't happen by accident. That's an intentional act that's going to happen. And we want to set that up for how are we going to do that? If we did 200,000 last year, well, how are we going to do 300 next year? That's not something that will happen by accident. That's going to happen as a result of a plan that's well executed.
So, do you charge extra for business plans?
We do not charge extra. That was a shift that we made. That shift a couple of years ago, but it's built into our monthly fee, our flat monthly fee. We don't charge any more, and we don't charge any less if we don't do the plan. The plan is there. If you need the plan, we're going to do the plan just because it needs to get done.
So is this different from most accounting firms?
Yeah, it's different from most accounting firms. It was different from the way we used to do things back a couple of years ago. But a couple of years ago, we made that switch. Most accounting firms, they're going to charge you, an extra fee. If you want a plan, it's like every year end, you get another fee. Every return, you get another fee. It's not a flat monthly fee like us. We're kind of the anomaly in that scenario. Not to say that maybe we're not the only one, but it's one of a very few lists that actually do it that way and price it that way, or a business plan doesn't cost extra.
Are the extra charges for business plans that other firms set, or are they based on time spent?
Yeah, that's one of the other scary things. Is now you need an extra plan, and even if you're willing to spend a couple of extra dollars, you don't know what a couple of extra dollars means, and maybe a couple of extra dollars means a couple of tens of thousands of extra dollars.
Oh man.
You wanted a plan, but all of a sudden you're $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 to do a plan. So it's not just that it's an extra cost; it's an uncertain extra cost. Based on how much time is going to be involved in the business owner. Well, I don't know how much time is going to be involved. The accountant doesn't know how much time is involved. How am I supposed to know what time is involved? they're paying the accountant to do that.
Yeah.
It can be a scary situation, I think.
Yeah, getting the mystery bill at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And you get the sticker shock, and you can't really refute it because you asked for a plan. And then you get this gigantic bill.
Yeah.
So when did you decide to stop charging extra for business plans?
It was a couple years ago, and we're going on it's 2-3 years now that we've been doing plans included in the monthly fees, and it probably a lot of it had to do with the state of the Alberta economy too. The economy doesn't it started to really tank when oil prices tanked here in Alberta, and clients who needed the plan the most were sometimes in the least favorable position to be able to afford the plan. So what do? Do we let those clients go and go looking for new clients, or do we stick by those clients and actually try to add value and actually try to accomplish our vision of helping 1,000 businesses for 5 years or more, rather than letting them fall off and just finding people with deeper pockets?
Yeah, it's not the well who need a doctor, it's the ones who are sick and in trouble that need the doctor. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Now, how did you use tax planning process as a model for creating these business plans?
So we were, really good in our tax planning process. We had very set processes, templates, systems on how we did our tax plans, which is maybe a little opposite of how other people do things, and they try to do them ad hoc, and we did them. How do we systematize it? How do we find the common missteps that business owners make, and how do we address those missteps in a plan? Just like on a tax return, what are the common things that people miss, and how can we set them up to reduce their taxes? The exact same thing on the business end. What are those common mistakes that business owners make, and how do we avoid them? And what are those initiatives that business owners they don't know about? What are the things that we can do to grow their business or improve reduce the risks in their business? A lot of these things there's a lot of items, but they start to become common when you start to look at hundreds of businesses. There's a handful or dozens of strategies that work amongst different industries. And that's how we use it as kind of a template, where we knew that if we put systems in place, we can get these things out the door at a higher level and more efficiently.
Why do you believe that a lot of other professionals are resistant to templates?
Yeah, and this goes beyond accounting. This is not just directed as accountants. I know this is accountants, this is lawyers, this is doctors, this is engineers, the professionals, and they say, I went to school for so long, and I don't need a template. That's why I went to school. You can't template my work. But that's been proven to be false. Atul Gawande, in one of my favorite, the Checklist Manifesto, he goes through it and says how they were able to use checklists for emergency room doctors. And these are some of the most educated and highly trained people in the world. And the checklist, reduced the number of fatalities in emergency rooms. And yet we sit there as an accountant or as a lawyer, as an engineer, and say, you can't checklist. Well, yeah, you can checklist, and I think it's a level of arrogance that develops because of that education. But it's that being humble about that and realizing that there are so many things that we can do to help our clients. It's impossible to commit all those things to memory and be perfect in the recall of that in memory each and every day, and then try to scale that memory amongst all our employees. It's absolutely impossible. I mean, we had a good example where a journeyman electrician, he's one of our clients, and he showed me his checklist for doing basement renovations.
Right.
And it had like 200 items on it that he goes through. And he's like, Josh, I've been a master electrician for 2 decades. And, he's probably one of the best guys in the city at it. But, he's honest enough to admit that if he doesn't have this checklist, he could very well miss one of those 200 items, because the next day he's in, some commercial outfit, doing a data center.
Yeah.
To think that we can commit all those things to memory, I think is arrogance, and it's a little bit dangerous, and we could all operate at a higher level if we had that humility to admit that the checklist helps us. Even if we're the ones who wrote it, we'll still do better with our own checklist.
Yeah, well, when you think of airline pilots, there's a checklist for each individual plane that's out there. Because if they didn't have a checklist for each plane, every pilot who went in there would fly the plane differently. And we know what kind of results that we want to avoid when flying aircraft. So, if it's good enough for airline pilots, it's good enough for a small businessman. Now, how do you believe that a template helps you perform at a higher level?
Yeah, I think it just has, the processes that you would otherwise not be able to commit to memory, the things that, there's 100 different, tax planning initiatives that we can consider here. did we actually consider each and every one of them? You know, the airline pilots that you brought up are great because they're actually the one profession that these guys are highly trained, but they still go by the checklist. You know, the guy who flew the plane into the Hudson River in New York, you know, what was his name? I
can't remember.
I forget it now, but they made the movie about him, and they asked him, you know, how did you do it? You know, I had this plane going down, it was a crash landing, and you managed to land it in the middle of the river. And he says, I followed the checklist. Guy's been a pilot for decades, and the plane was crash landing, and he followed a checklist. And we're saying we can't, you know, follow a checklist in a non-life-threatening situation. Yeah. It's just there's so many variables that we need to consider on each and every, you know, item. And let's build a bigger and better checklist rather than try to commit a few things to memory.
Does the template offer a certain amount of customization?
Yeah, you're never going to template everything. You know, a checklist isn't going to help a non-accountant be an accountant. A checklist is just going to help an accountant be a better accountant. This is the same thing. You know, a checklist will help a doctor be a better doctor, but it's not going to qualify me or you to do that surgery. People seem to think that it replaces that education. It doesn't replace that education. It just improves upon that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's going to, there's going to be a certain level of customization, you know, professional judgment. You're just trying to take those standardized decisions out of it. You know, this works almost every time, so let's do this. And the things that, you know, we do have to make some professional judgment. Now we have more time freed up. You know, mm-hmm. Now we can spend our time on the things that need to be customized rather than the things that can be systemized.
Well, Josh, does the business planning process allow work to be done at a reasonable fee?
100%, yeah. So once we have those items and we have them systematized, mm-hmm. you know, we know what marketing initiatives generally work, then we can, you know, in our plans, you know, we focus on those foundational marketing initiatives because they work almost every time. Right. And then we save our expertise, you know, to look at some of the pipeline initiatives. What will be appropriate for that particular client, you know, concerning their vision in their industry with their skill set, you know, what's going to fit right for them. You know, it goes all the way through the business plan. You know, what's that target market going to look like? You know, what's their differentiation factors? You know, we have a couple of standard differentiation factors, but it's going to be customized to them. They might have something completely different. You know, what are the risks of the business? We have all of our common risks listed out, but every once in a while they have two of the common lists, and one of their other risks are completely different than one of the common ones are. But having those systems put in place, you know, it just allows us to plow through all the things that are very similar, right, very quickly. Now the average business owner can actually afford to have a CPA prepare their plan because they're not reinventing the wheel every time. They're just applying their professional judgment to the things that are different in their business, and they're using their knowledge to give you the data on the things that work in the most efficient manner possible. That's how we generally tackle it. So I think that's what we have here today. Why business plans don't cost extra at Spurrell Associates, Edmonton accounting firm. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. We'd love to address them and use your feedback for to develop future content. And please hit the like and subscribe button so we can continue to deliver you tips on how to beat the odds at business. Thanks very much.